Hello, I'm Larry Good with City TV. Welcome to this edition of Inside Santa Barbara, the city's only news magazine program. We keep you up to date on all the significant projects, issues, and events around the city. So have you noticed what's popping up all over downtown Santa Barbara? They're called pop-ups, small local businesses filling storefront vacancies as entrepreneurs, landlords, and the city of Santa Barbara invent an entirely new way of doing business. For the past few years, it has been the talk of the town, specifically the downtown. Vacant storefronts with their for-lease signs and unused square footage dotting the landscape up and down State Street. As a result, it's generating new conversations and ideas among business leaders, landlords, and city officials. The result is a relatively new concept called pop-ups, and they're beginning to pop up as a welcomed opportunity for local entrepreneurs. This welcomed new tune downtown has entrepreneurs, landlords, business leaders, and City of Santa Barbara officials singing the praises of the pop-up movement.
I think it's really exciting. I think it's kind of almost the new way forward. It's a chance to try things. It's a chance to be creative.
At 1019 State Street, that creativity is in full view. A 2,800 square foot business, once vacant for months, is now a gallery for 23 local artists.
We thought we could try this for 30 days or even 2 months.
It has been a long-term dream for many of these artists to show their oils, mosaics, and acrylics on State Street, but rents have always been too expensive. Their search for affordability led them to commercial broker Mitch Stark.
I went to the landlord. He said, okay, I'll do it. And that's about 50 to 75% below market what he ended up doing. He was a tremendous landlord to be able to do that, to help reinvigorate our street. The energy here tonight is unbelievable.
Energy is exactly what the pop-up idea is meant to generate. Fill the space, generate foot traffic, bring a little more life downtown.
What we're doing is introducing entrepreneurs and established businesses who are looking at their next opportunity with property owners and brokers who have vacant space.
The city of Santa Barbara is playing an active role in the effort to bring entrepreneurs and landlords together to make this pop-up idea happen.
The city is encouraging all our stakeholders to come together and help fill our vacant spaces. These spaces are opportunities for businesses to get started.
At a workshop in mid-September, there was no shortage of existing business owners and entrepreneurs entertaining the pop-up idea. Paul Vacular pitched Project Sandbox, an experimental interactive venue for kids using LED walls and projection equipment to simulate many experiences, including oceans and space.
Anytime it's something new, it's a little harder to establish, but once established, it can have very good success.
Monica Dabos wants to expand her alcohol-free social establishment called Yes Dance to other sober endeavors. Joan Mayer has 2 business locations already, but would like to be on State Street. To do so, she would need an initial rent cut or possibly pay the landlord a percentage of sales.
Initially, just to see if the business would thrive in the area. So it's almost like a test to see, and then is getting off the ground and seeing if the business grew, then we could afford more rent.
And while some may need a large space, most of those interested locating on State Street want to share a building with other entrepreneurs.
We couldn't deal with an entire retail space on our own. We're a pretty small team, so that was really what I was interested here, and it sounds like there's going to be some follow-up that's going to look a little bit more at collaboration and how that might work, so we'll definitely stay tuned.
The pop-up concept is simple. The tenant signs a short-term agreement, maybe 2 months. There is an option to extend if the landlord agrees. The tenant initially pays less rent or a percentage of sales, providing them a chance to build the business. To expedite the process and get the storefronts filled, tenants are encouraged to follow a few ground rules. No improvements to the building itself, including walls, plumbing, or flooring, which is actually a cost savings. The city of Santa Barbara has also paved the way for pop-ups to save time and money, creating a window sign. A 4 square foot pre-approved template is available so businesses can steer clear of permits.
We're encouraging entrepreneurs to get started in vacant spaces without improving the space. Don't change the plumbing, don't knock out a wall. That means you don't need a building permit.
And for the landlords, they get a revitalized space, an income stream, and they can continue looking for a long-term tenant. Dan Farrick says the pop-ups are also a great marketing tool for landlords.
If somebody comes in and sees a vacant, dark, dank space, maybe they'll be like, I don't know if that space is for me. But if there's like commerce happening and lots of people buying stuff and fun and energy and noise, maybe that next tenant comes in and goes, well, that's a space I want to rent. A lot of our members are on the wall.
Farrick is co-founder and CEO of Impact Hub, a collaborative space for small and medium-sized businesses and nonprofits.
What's going on State Street is I think a lot of the national companies are leaving, the big retailers, and it's leaving a big hole. Why the pop-up is so important is it gives these smaller businesses an identity on State Street that they wouldn't normally have had in a collaborative environment.
Just up the street where Pete's Coffee moved out, what's now called Mosaic, Farrick brokered a joint venture with 4 different vendors, using one space at different times throughout the business day. The merger includes Hook and Press Donuts, Buena Onda serving empanadas, Juice Ranch selling pressed juices, and Draftsman Ale Works serving up a variety of craft beers. Mosaic has set an example of how a collaborative pop-up can work.
I don't want to own a restaurant. I don't want to make or serve food. None of my partners do. We want them to make good beer. Matthias wants to make the best empanadas he can. He does not want to fool around with alcohol. And John wants to make donuts. So we put all those 3 together and we have a great combination that we all focus on what we do best, and it elevates us all.
We're starting to break down bridges so that we all can be on the same team and move forward as Santa Barbara instead of landlord versus tenant.
Prospective tenants and landlord brokers went face-to-face at a workshop in September. Entrepreneurs pitched their business ideas and square footage needs. Marissa and Scott Sorochek opened their contemporary women's and children's boutique on the 700 block of State Street just 6 weeks after that speed dating workshop. The landlord, SEMA Corporation, took care of all the tenant improvements and met them more than halfway on the 3-month lease.
The fact that we had already established, 3 stores that were very profitable in the Bay Area, and that we had talked to them about, we want to be part of this revitalization project. We give a lot of credit to the city for opening its arms to people that are outside of the region. We had made it clear that we were not only interested in this place for short term, but that we were interested long term.
Nikki Parr says the landlords are looking for pop-ups that have a chance to succeed.
The landlords and the property agents really have to be mindful of what will work on State Street and in downtown area, and kind of be part of the vision of what we want to be bringing back to State Street and the experiences that we want to be offering to the consumers and the visitors.
At Plum Goods on the 900 block of State Street, owner Amy Cooper loves the pop-up idea and hopes one fills the space next door.
Since the 8 years that I've been here, the increased vacancy rate has lowered the foot traffic on State Street year over year over year. So we're at our lowest rate of foot traffic walking up and down the street. If it's empty, it's a little intimidating or it doesn't look that exciting, but even if it's just a temporary pop-up, then some stronger, longer-term retailer could come and say this looks really appealing. So I think it's just great for all of us.
The pop-up is a new concept and, as importantly, represents a new business culture. Although this idea is new to Santa Barbara and State Street, there is cautious optimism that the idea will take root.
State Street has stayed stagnant for too long. And the younger population, known as the millennials, they want to go and be a part of something new and exciting and different. So what we need to do, with the city's help and the artists' help, is to make State Street new again.
I think it's a movement for revitalizing State Street and giving the small business owner and people that are interested the opportunity to come in with a lower lease, make the profits, and then continue with the permanent lease.
This is really a great opportunity for our local businesses to show their entrepreneurial spirit and creative flourishes and bring more of a local feel back to downtown.
If you'd like to learn more about starting up your own pop-up, visit santabarbaraca.gov/pop-ups. If you're planning a trip soon that involves an airplane, you're going to want to watch this next story. In it, Chris Bell compares flying in and out of Santa Barbara Airport to that of LAX, and you will be surprised with what he found.
Traveling by air is different for everybody. Some love it, some hate it, some look at it simply as the quickest way to get from point A to point B. But regardless of your opinion on flying, one thing we can all agree on is the desire to save time and money. With a new terminal and the recent addition of new air carriers and destinations at Santa Barbara Airport, I thought it would be a good time to see how SBA matches up with those considerations in mind. For the sake of simplicity, I chose to compare SBA to LAX because it's the nearest and most frequently used alternative airport. I also spoke to real travelers to get their opinions. Since the top consideration for most people is cost, let's look at that first. Currently, there are 10 nonstop destinations offered out of SBA, so I used a few of those to compare with LAX. One of the more popular destinations from Santa Barbara Airport is San Francisco. When I checked, a round-trip nonstop flight over the holiday went for $231. The same trip for the same dates traveling from LAX was $131. Checking other flights had similar results, with flights from LAX being slightly cheaper, but not always. For instance, a last-minute flight to Denver from LAX cost $309. That same trip from Santa Barbara was less than half that, at $142.
Actually, coming out of Santa Barbara to Denver, it's cheaper, on Frontier than LAX. You know, really wasn't that much more. It was maybe like $50 more than flying straight to LA, which when you add up the time and the cost and the traffic and the hassle, I think it's worth a little bit extra.
But there's a lot more to air travel than just the fares. Getting to and from the airport is also a big consideration, and nothing exemplifies that better than a trip to LAX. So that's what I'm doing. I've pegged my imaginary flight at 10 a.m., so I got up early to leave 4 hours before that. It doesn't take long before things slow down. Without traffic, the trip should take about 90 minutes, but today, Maps is telling me it's going to be over 2 hours. So we've made it about as far as Reseda, and we've hit stop-and-go traffic. We've still got about 22 miles to go, so if I had a real flight to take, I'd be getting nervous right about now. Finally, I arrive at LAX, but that's only part of the equation. Now I have to park. There are lots of long-term parking options around LAX. However, to keep the comparison apples to apples, I chose LAX's own long-term lot. The cost is comparable at $12 for 24 hours at LAX and $13 at SBA. But one noticeable difference is the proximity to the terminal. SBA's long-term lot is at the terminal and easily walkable. At LAX, you've got to take a shuttle, and that takes more time.
But when you do park, what's that experience like compared to, say, LAX?
Oh, it's so easy. You know, you can drive from my house and be parked in the terminal in 15 minutes.
After mistakenly passing LAX's long-term lot once, I discovered another reason easy parking is so valuable. So we've just encountered another consideration. Their long-term lot is full, so we've got to now find alternative parking. The next area to compare is getting to the gate. Ticketing at SBA is low-key and quick, even on busy days. Ticketing at LAX, not so much. And we can't do a proper airport comparison without considering the TSA security check. Because it's so much smaller, SBA has short lines, if any, and things move quickly. At LAX, it's a lot longer.
You have to get there early because security is a really long line. And here I showed up early and now I'm sitting around for an extra hour because it took me like 5 minutes to get through.
Leaving from Santa Barbara going through security is a breeze compared to going through security in Los Angeles. And just the environment at the Santa Barbara airport is far more relaxed than going through any of the terminals in Los Angeles. So when I travel, and I travel a lot, I usually leave out of Santa Barbara whenever possible.
For the final comparison category, I chose to look at overall experience. I've recently traveled out of LAX, and while the facilities are fine, the vast size, long lines, and massive crowds can be overwhelming, especially if traveling with children. The experience at SBA, however, is something altogether different.
I just highly recommend flying out of Santa Barbara. I just can't imagine people going down to LAX. I just did it a month ago to take a flight to Istanbul, and we got there 3 hours early, and the flight was delayed.
Leaving from SBA is pleasant because you generally have counter agents and TSA folks that aren't stressed out. You know, they can sit there and talk to you, and I think they do a really good job of problem solving when there is an issue that comes up with your flight. In Los Angeles, because the volume is so great, you know, you're just another face in the crowd.
The people, you know, that are working behind the counters, whether it's, we typically fly United, but we've flown American, and it's so much more friendlier here than it is in LAX or O'Hare or any place like that.
Super easy, very quick. Not needing to standard travel, getting to a place 2 hours prior to your check-in time.
It's just very quick, in and out. You come into the airport and you don't even know. It's like, wow, that's going to be easy.
If you would like to depart differently on your next trip and relax instead of LAX, visit flysba.com. We'll be back with more Inside Santa Barbara in just a minute.
Hug the coast on your way to work. Early morning train service starts April 2nd from Ventura County to Santa Barbara and Goleta. Arrive at work refreshed and ready for the day. Enjoy a hot coffee. Stay relaxed. Free Wi-Fi sound good? It's time to experience a better way to travel. Go to PacificSurfliner.com or contact a traffic solutions specialist to book your tickets and find out more.
I added mulch to my trees and plants.
I put in a laundry to landscape gray water system to irrigate my fruit trees.
I removed my lawn and planted WaterWise native plants and installed drip irrigation.
I stopped watering my lawn.
Do your part by saving water in your garden. Get a free water checkup from your water provider. Keep saving water, Santa Barbara County.
Welcome back to Inside Santa Barbara. An important part of your water saving strategy is to make sure that your irrigation system is not part of the problem. Up next, water conservation specialist Kathy Perret gives us some advice on how to keep your system in tip-top shape.
Hi, I'm Kathy Perret. I'm with the City of Santa Barbara's Water Conservation Department. Today we're going to look for leaks in a sprinkler system. One of the first steps to do before you turn the irrigation on is to do a walkabout. Try and look and see if there's any unusual, inefficient water issues that you might see. Brown spots, dead areas, super green areas, and moss. If we see in this corner over here, we actually have moss, which is indicative of too much water, poor drainage in this area, and it just shouldn't be here, especially during the warm months. Another thing to look for that happens fairly often is the seals around the top of the sprinklers. They're rubber and they'll leak. So you need to take a close look at just the top part of the sprinkler and see if there's water settling in or if you see it gurgling out from around the sides. It's an easy fix. Either replace the little rubber seal that's inside, or if the water's leaking because it's at the bottom of a hill, they have little tiny rubber seals called check valves you can put in, and that'll stop the water from draining out at the bottom of the hill. As we're going through and doing our site evaluation, you might want to have a piece of paper, mark down where your valves are, and then as you're going around and testing the valves, put down where each of the zones are. Right now we're going to check that backyard. I'm going to take a look at it. If I see any problems, I'll stick a flag next to it because it's always hard to find when you turn the sprinkler back off. This is always a good time to really look at your valves and make sure that they're not leaking anywhere around where the threaded areas are or where the solenoid is on the top of. So the sprinklers are on, and they actually have pretty good coverage. The water's throwing from one head to the next head, but what I'm noticing is there's that misting happening. And the misting is water that's too much pressure coming through this, and it's actually evaporating off and it's not making it to the surface. It's easy to address it by putting a pressure regulator on the system. Another thing to look for while you're looking for leaks is when the plant material has grown up over your sprinkler heads. What happens with that is that the sprinklers try and throw the water out, but it doesn't make it out here and you end up with a brown spot. I'm going to mark this area, and you can see the sprinkler is way down underneath here. So I'm going to mark this area so that I know to come back and make some adjustments, either move the sprinkler or move and prune that plant. Wow, we turned on the next section and this is what we found. I think we should turn it off. Can you turn it off, please? So as we check this one, what we can see is the guts to the sprinkler are missing. Definitely going to be in need of repair. In fact, I think it's completely broken. We're going to actually have to replace this whole head. So it's good, once again, to mark where it's at and then come back out with a shovel, a flat bottom shovel. You're going to dig around it so that you can unscrew that sprinkler head, get a new one, screw it back on the riser, and then it should work fine. And one of the very most obvious things to look for is green versus brown. If you look in an area that you know you have sprinklers in, and one section is nice and green, it looks like it has good coverage, and then you take a look and you see a section that doesn't appear to be getting even water coverage, first thing to look for is what's up with the sprinkler over there. You could have a broken pipe underground. You could have roots that have wrapped around and stopped the flow. It could be a failed sprinkler. On this one, what we've found is this particular sprinkler is not coming up at all. I'm going to mark it with a flag so that I know when I come to do my repairs that I need to address this particular issue. When it's repaired, we should have an even coverage of water and everything should be healthy again. I'm going to give you all a close-up of what a sprinkler body looks like. Most times it's underground, so you don't know what the guts look like. Sprinklers are composed of a body that attaches to your main water. There's a little riser, this screws into it. It's just a channel for the water. Inside of the body, there is the pop-up mechanism that's on a spring. This is called a check valve, just a little rubber washer that stops water from going back down the pipe. And then when it's all together, you just have a nozzle, and that's what directs the water where you want it in your landscape. This is something that everybody can do. When you have two sprinkler heads on a zone that one is working and one isn't, a lot of times it could be a problem with the actual PVC pipe between those two sprinkler heads. What you need to do is to try and use a screwdriver or a soil probe and track down where it's the wettest. And unfortunately, you need to dig. Working in your irrigation system is wet work, it's muddy work, but you can learn to repair things like a PVC break by going on our website and watching a couple of the videos that we have for you. It can be done, it's inexpensive. Good luck. Enjoy yourself, play in the sprinklers.
To learn more about how to keep your irrigation system humming, visit sbwater.org. You know, law enforcement officers risk their lives every day to keep us safe. Now, for the first time, the Santa Barbara Police Department has a memorial to honor its fallen heroes. Writer Christ has the story.
Without courageous officers, there would be no security, and without their sacrifice, there would be no justice.
For the first time ever, the Santa Barbara Police Department has a memorial to remember the 6 officers that died in the line of duty serving the community.
Oh, say, can you see
We're going to honor these 6 remarkable men whose names are on this wall and celebrate the fact that we finally have a memorial here in Santa Barbara recognizing them and befitting of their sacrifice.
The day is here. I knew it would get here someday.
Retired Santa Barbara Police Chief Cam Sanchez had the dream for a memorial to remember Santa Barbara's fallen officers about 4 years ago.
One day he called me into his office and pointed out the window and said, "Riley, I want a police memorial, and I want it right there by the flagpole."
Officer Riley Harwood began the campaign to raise the money for the memorial. Generous donations from the community fully funded the $70,000 bronze memorial statue.
It's just amazing. I had a young man at Ralph's one day say, "You know, my mother gave $5 to the statue." It just shows the caring of the community.
All from the community. I'm very proud of that fact. No public money went to this project.
The statue commemorates Detective H. Thomas Gary, Officer Henry Evans, Officer Clarence Jensen, Officer Ronald Wayne Scott, Officer Richard Williams, and Officer David Huddle.
Law enforcement can be a very dangerous profession. Every one of us who wears the uniform knows that there is a potential for violence, and over the years, many of our brothers and sisters have made the ultimate sacrifice for our chosen profession. But every time we leave the house, there is that dark reality that no one speaks about. That this may be the last time you see your loved one.
The men and women in law enforcement who put on that uniform and go out into the unknown, prepared to face adversity and possibly lose their lives, serving and protecting others, are very special people. They do it because they love the job and have a strong commitment to the communities they serve.
Ladies, on behalf of the Santa Barbara Police Department, we present you with these flags in honor of your sacrifice, your loved one's sacrifice.
This heartfelt reminder is not only for the friends and family of the fallen officers, but to those who put on the uniform to protect and serve our community every day.
This stands as a reminder for the true reason why we do it and why we need to continue doing it each and every day.
I encourage you to, if you remember as you drive out of these gates, that you salute the 6 that are on this wall. It doesn't take much but a half a second.
Even when the new police station is constructed, the Fallen Officers Memorial will continue to stand beside it, honoring the sacrifice of the officers and the commitment the City of Santa Barbara has to our community. We'll be right back with more of Inside Santa Barbara.
I grew up here. I've made memories here, and I love being able to drive around knowing that this is my community. I'm helping my community.
We care, and we want to make this community a better place.
This career is for someone who wants to be challenged deep down inside to better a community.
It's the best job in the world, it really is. It's like a dream come true. Join your home team.
In a disaster, it's not just your needs you have to consider. All members of your family have to be ready. Don't forget the pets.
Welcome back to Inside Santa Barbara. For the past 18 years, the community has been getting together to celebrate what makes up the natural beauty of the South Coast. Alyssa Arce has the story.
Creek Week is an annual celebration of our creeks and ocean, with events hosted by many organizations. It's a fun, hands-on way to help educate people about our local watersheds and to get people engaged.
There's a lot of different ways to bring the community into this thoughtfulness that we're all part of a watershed, not just a part of neighborhoods, but part of a bigger picture.
Every year, the fan favorite continues to be the Land Shark Tour, sponsored by the City of Santa Barbara Creeks Division. Participants learn about various efforts made to preserve and restore local creeks.
It's just continued to be a really popular event, and I think that people definitely learn a lot on that tour, so that's been really successful for us.
They do this while riding an amphibious tour vehicle capable of land and sea travel. The Creeks Division highlighted current and completed creek restoration projects and permeable pavement as they drove the streets of Santa Barbara. Urban development has altered and covered much of our local watersheds with buildings and concrete. This makes it difficult for rain to soak back into the earth and follow natural waterways. The rain flows from all over the city and into storm drains, which flow directly into the ocean. When rain flows off of the pavement, it can carry pollutants with it. This problem with urban runoff kickstarted Creek Week almost 2 decades ago. In the late 1990s, a particularly wet El Niño year led to multiple beach closures throughout the county due to water quality concerns. The community decided that something had to change.
The community pretty much directed and informed the agencies of what they wanted to have done. It was through the stakeholder interests that we decided that a whole week-long series of events with programs, interactive activities, forums, speakers, anything that would bring the community a little bit closer and connect them with the environment would be great.
To understand how the County Flood Control District prepares for potential flooding, County Project Clean Water hosted a tour of the San Isidro debris basin, covering its history and the role it played in the January 9 debris flow.
We held a forum. It was at the Montecito Union School. It was really well attended, and we wanted to have both. We wanted to have an opportunity for people to be in an auditorium and hear speakers, but also to kind of be able to come out and see it. So we scheduled those on 2 separate events.
Our local creeks also provide important habitat for wildlife. To celebrate this, the Santa Barbara Audubon Society organized a birdwalk at the Honda Valley Open Space. Participants came across woodpeckers, jays, and even got a close-up look at a juvenile hawk. SB Audubon's mission is to connect people with birds and nature through education and science-based projects.
Over the years,
Visitors also toured UC Santa Barbara's newly restored North Campus Open Space, formerly known as the Ocean Meadows Golf Course. Restoration began in the fall of 2016 and included the removal of non-native plants and the revival of the Devereaux Slough. Close to 150,000 plants were installed, as well as bridges and paths for outdoor recreation. The open space is expected to be completed in the spring of 2019. Creek Week continues to be an important part of engaging and educating the public about our watersheds. Though we may not come in contact with our creeks on a daily basis, they continually play an important role in our ecosystem.
We invite non-governmental organizations, environmental organizations, and other community groups to also host events throughout the week. So really anybody who wants to host an event and get involved, we're happy to add them to the schedule and help promote their events.
To learn more about Creek Week, visit sbcreekweek.com. Well, recently, one of Santa Barbara's most used and visible parks has undergone significant improvement. Cody Long has that story.
A renovation project for the Cabrillo Ballpark has been under consideration for many years. The park is highly utilized by the community, but the facility itself has long been outdated and in need of modernization. In recent years, the park has also seen its share of negative activity.
We had some significant park safety issues that needed to be addressed, but we also wanted to make sure whatever we did would benefit the community for many years to come.
The neighborhood got together, we had community meetings, and there really was a lot of support for a place to exercise, for the East Side neighborhood to come down and be able to have a walking track, which if you go around the outside of this, you have, and then to add the exercise equipment was just a bonus. So it was to make it a place for families.
After a tremendous amount of community input, consensus was reached as to how the park space should be improved, and the Cabrillo Ballpark renovation project began.
And what we heard over and over again was a priority for a walking path, and so we made some new connections on the sidewalk so it made it easier to walk around the park. And then also some way for people to exercise, but to do it within their range of ability, so that anyone, whether they're a casual walker or a huge fitness enthusiasts could come and spend some time here.
The city has installed 13 pieces of exercise equipment to the park. Strength, balance, flexibility, and cardio machines are all here and available for public use. Most of the equipment, like this chest press, utilizes the user's body weight in order to create resistance. Prior to the park's renovation, there was no ADA accessibility to the field's viewing area. The recent project added accessibility ramps alongside the restored stairs and bleachers.
Our parks are very old, so every time we redo a park, we're looking at some major accessibility issues that need to be addressed so that they're open to everyone.
Improved fencing around the field and the addition of pedestrian lighting has immensely enhanced the park's safety. The new grass for the park is a special type of sod, which has the ability to tolerate recycled water that is delivered via a high-efficiency irrigation system.
I think it's beautiful. I think it meets the needs of the community. It also preserves its historic importance, but it brings it up to the uses that we want for parks today, with outdoor exercise equipment that's available to everyone.
Part of why Santa Barbara is so incredibly special, in particular the waterfront, is because of the vision that community members had so long ago, 100 years ago, to set aside land for public access and recreation. The fact that the city owns 60% of the land along the coast, and for the most part it's open for public use and recreation, is tremendous. And so reinvesting in these locations really just sets us up to serve the public for many years to come.
So head on over to Cabrillo Ballpark and find out what the excitement is all about. The best wines come from regions with the best soil and climate. And did you know that relates to seafood as well? Up next, find out why our locally caught seafood is considered some of the best in the world.
It may look a little dangerous, but this spiky dish is a delicacy with a lot of fans. The centerpiece is a red sea urchin, a creature once the bane of local abalone divers that is now a boon.
Originally kind of a nuisance fishery a little bit, something that some of the ab divers would do a little bit part-time, and bit by bit it got more and more developed. It really took off with Japan in the late 80s, early 90s. Our urchin got discovered and they found the quality and a really good supply during their peak demand.
Today, red sea urchin harvested from our Channel Islands is regarded as some of the best in the world.
Santa Barbara is known for their sea urchin is because of the terroir. I like to call it analogous to a terroir with wine. The things that they're eating, the temperature of the water, the nutrients in the water, the habitat in which they're in, it has everything to do with how they taste.
But it's not just our sea urchin at the top of gourmets' must-have lists. Other locally caught seafood is prized as well, like the spiny lobster.
It's considered much sweeter, and if you're just going on its global value, it's much, much more highly valued on the global market than American lobsters on the East Coast with the claws. Our spiny lobsters are right in there with all of the most valuable lobsters in the world.
Being the only sheltered harbor for 127 miles, Santa Barbara is uniquely situated to take advantage of an array of desirable species off our coast and at the Channel Islands.
Santa Barbara is positioned in a transition zone from southern to central. It's right there at the bend with Point Conception in the state, and you get a lot of mixing in that there's cold water currents mixing with warmer water currents from the south. And so you have a variety of fluctuating populations of fish.
Urchins cycle around different times of the year, and the Channel Islands have so many little kind of microclimates, as you would say, or micro habitats, so you can almost always find pretty good urchin out there.
Being the closest to some of the best fishing grounds has its benefits. Santa Barbara-based fishermen haul in more sea urchin, lobster, rock crab, sea cucumber, and white sea bass than anywhere else in the state. For the last third of a century, local commercial fishermen have hauled in an average of 11 million pounds of seafood a year. That catch has earned them an average of $11 million a year at the dock, while at the same time making a substantial positive impact on the local economy.
But that economic benefit, if you will, when
You add an industry-accepted multiplier for fuel docks and ice houses and retail and wholesale and restaurant staff and what have you, is about a $30 million economic benefit from our fisheries here in Santa Barbara.
The city and the waterfront department have long realized the importance of the commercial fishing industry and supported it accordingly.
This harbor's been real fishing friendly. It's one of the few ports with public hoists, and that in itself has helped a lot of fisheries develop alternative markets. You're not locked into dealing with a certain buyer or an expensive fee to get your catch offloaded. And we have an ice house here. So this harbor is really great to fish out of it.
But a healthy, sustainable fishery doesn't just happen. It comes from management, and today's management goes far beyond the simple size and season restrictions of the past.
It's gotten a lot more sophisticated. Zonal management, setting some areas aside for no fishing so they can enhance species outside the zones. Also, what's really changed in fisheries management, and it's very encouraging, is that managers aren't managing in a vacuum anymore. Fishermen have become very much involved in the management process.
Fishermen are the most environmentally conscious, conservative people on the planet, because if that resource is gone, then we're out of a job. So we definitely want to look out for the longevity and sustainability of a resource.
In keeping with their environmental goals, the commercial fishermen of Santa Barbara have been making a push to promote local sales.
90% of the fish consumed in the U.S. is imported, and that doesn't make any sense. And as a viable, energetic, economically strong port with all this diversity in what we catch and sell, it makes no sense that more of what we produce locally doesn't get directly into the Santa Barbara consumer market.
If you're buying your seafood from a supermarket, you have a huge disconnect of where exactly it's from. You don't know how old it's been, you don't know how it's been treated. When it comes from somewhere outside of the U.S., the regulations and the rules and the laws are more lax.
It's just like farmers markets. When you know the people that are harvesting what you're taking home to eat, there's a better connection there. And then when you know your customers on a first name basis or more personal basis, you definitely take a little more pride in what you're producing and putting out, because if somebody's not happy with your product, you get the phone call.
You can get fresh, locally caught seafood in Santa Barbara in a number of ways. The Santa Barbara Fish Market at the harbor is open 7 days a week. You can also buy seafood at surprisingly good prices right off the boat at the Saturday Fisherman's Market.
Generally, it's less money if you're buying directly from your fishermen, especially for quality.
And what we've done in order to make the experience appeal to a broader group of people is we've created a fillet station so that if you come to buy a whole fish, we can process that fish to some point, whatever you choose.
And there's an aesthetic to it. There's an aesthetic to picking up a red rock cod and holding it in your hands and realizing, wow, I got this straight from that man who caught it on this boat. It's just part of the whole dynamic. It's really cool.
The other way to taste our locally caught seafood is to patronize the growing number of restaurants that now carry it.
It's in the sushi restaurants, it's in the regular restaurants. So I give them a heck of a lot of credit because they've taken this value-added concept and really gotten traction with it. And it's an important part of the fisheries these days.
It's our name and our face behind that product. We want to provide that best quality to our community, and we're going to.
To learn more about our fisheries and where to buy the freshest locally caught seafood, visit cfsb.info. That's going to do it for this edition of Inside Santa Barbara. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions or comments about our program, please give us a call at 564-5311. And if you missed anything, not to worry, you can go online at santabarbaraca.gov. I'm your host, Larry Good. Remember, get involved inside Santa Barbara.